Hello, and welcome to the Live Blissed Out podcast, helping demystify decision making so you can get unstuck and take action. I'm your host, Marissa Houston, bringing you another blissful episode. Hello, action takers. Welcome to episode 7 of the Live Blissed Out podcast. Thanks for joining me. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. My guest today is Amy Rasco. She has been the carpeting and flooring girl for over 11 years. She keeps up with the industry changes and new design concepts. She's a mobile showroom, allowing the customer to see the flooring in the comfort of their own home. By carrying the most popular styles and colors and listening to the client's needs, she helps select the perfect flooring. After the selection, she has a great team of installers to make sure everything looks good. Amy can be reached at 303-819-6183. Hi, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Marissa. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited about this.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I'm excited too. It's obvious that most of us don't think about flooring on a daily basis. It's not part of our daily thought. However, there are moments in our lives when we do have to consider it. For example, we may be moving into a new home and we want to get rid of the carpet and upgrade. Or we may have decided that we love living in our existing home and we just want it to look better. So we're going to need flooring for that. There are a lot of different scenarios where we get faced with that decision. And to be honest, it's super confusing because there's just so many options out there. And I really don't know where to start, where I think a lot of the listeners are probably feeling the same way. They get frustrated. It's kind of an exciting thing to do, right? But at the same time, you're kind of dreading it because you're going, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what kind of flooring to get. How do I even go about this process? So you can help us kind of figure out what people should be considering to make the best decisions for themselves.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this. And I will hope to help navigate through some of this craziness. Because you're right. It is just like buying a car. There's how many different makes and manufacturers and different models and this and that. And it really boils down to your need. When I meet with the customer, the first thing I find out is what are you planning to do with the home that you need to put new flooring in? Are you selling, like you said, or are you living there and just want to upgrade? Or did you have a catastrophe and like say the basement flooded or water pipe broke or something like that? What exactly is your need? And so then what I do is based on that is I go through and say, okay, so if you're selling, you obviously need it to look good. You want it to feel good. And you want to give the person that's buying your house something decent, but you don't want to spend a lot of money because you're not going to get to enjoy it. So we have a whole type of product that we will put in a house that looks good, feels good, and is quite affordable. So then that way they're getting their needs taken care of without going crazy and spending a lot of money.
To your point, I love what you're saying there because it's critical that you really understand what this flooring is going to be for. Is it to resell your home? Are you planning to live there forever and you really want your house to look good and therefore you're willing to spend extra because you want all the bells and whistles that come with whatever type of floor you decide? And then you might even consider where in the house this is going because flooring in the kitchen is going to be different from flooring in the master bedroom.
Absolutely. I was actually at an appointment last night. It was kind of funny because the house is for sale and she's had multiple showings, but yet they haven't had any offers. They had had some feedback on the flooring. So I came up and I took a look at it and I'm like, all in all, the floors were not that bad. Yeah, she might have had a couple of people made a comment here or there, but I kind of went over with her and said, look, in this case, I don't recommend you replacing anything because I don't think you're going to get the bang for your buck out of replacing these floors to sell the house. So they were going to talk about it and I gave them the pricing just in case they wanted to do that, but they didn't really need to do something. So I never want to talk myself out of a sale, but I also really want to be a consultant for people so that you're going to know if your carpet's bad. You're going to know if the wood floors are scratched up. You're going to know if you have cracked tiles. So you're going to know those kinds of things about when it's time to replace as far as selling. And I'll even take it a step further. So say you bring me in and say, yeah, I love it. I'm going to update this for my myself, but I'm only going to be here for 5 or 6 more years. Okay, so then that's still another conversation. Well, you can get this style of carpet, or you can go to maybe a mid-grade type of carpet that you're still going to get a lot of enjoyment out of, and it'll still look good in that 5 or 6 years. So there's all these different levels of carpet, and then there's different levels of what you need for, and there's new products being introduced all the time. So hardwood is a staple that's been around for 100 years, probably literally. And then you've got tile, and then there's some different engineered product. And one of the new products out there is luxury vinyl tile. We've been using that for a couple of years now, and it is a great product. So a lot of people are wanting to introduce that product into their house. And it's a great way to update some extra spaces that maybe had some older flooring in, but it's pretty affordable. So that would be an option for you if you're getting ready to sell as well. It's like, okay, I've got some linoleum that looks old and dated, but I don't want to spend a lot. Let's do this to update that area. Within each carpet category, there's different levels. If you're a house that's a busy household with kids in and out and pets in and out, and you don't really want to think about your carpet, which is none of us really want to think about our carpet because we want to just live our lives.
Right.
So we want to find you a good durable carpet with some great stain protection. And that way you know that whatever happens in your house, it's going to clean up well for you, and it's going to not show every little wear and tear that happens throughout the house.
I'll be honest with you, until I met you, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a personal flooring consultant. As a consumer, you just think there's only one place to go, and that's the store. And there's an array of choices, but also there may be other choices that you didn't even know existed that are not there because that's all you see in front of you. And then you just get frustrated and you go, okay, well, that looks good. Whatever. I'm just going to put that in the cart and go. It's kind of refreshing to know that there's an expert like you out there that can really help you navigate through the choices and find out what the pros and cons are before you get to that point.
Well, and that's one of the things I've really tried hard by being a mobile showroom. It's really nice because I can come to your house. I can see your house. I can see your decor. I can see what you need. Everybody has a budget. Let's try to get you more bang for your buck for that budget and not get you something that you don't need, not try to upsell you on products that aren't necessarily something that's going to fit your needs. And so it's really helpful to be there in the home. And then they get to see the products in their house as well. And look at the color schemes and the lighting in their own home, because when you're out and about, everybody has different sorts of lights. And even in different neighborhoods, one house can have the same floor plan. It'll face north and not get direct sun. The other house will face south. It'll get direct sun. And that changes the effect of everything too. So it's just helpful to say, okay, let's talk about your needs. Let's talk about where you're going with this and what are your expectations for what you want your flooring to do for you. It's a lot of listening to people.
I also think that people don't even realize how many questions that they should be asking or considering. They're just going with the basic. Okay, I know I need tile. Oh, that color looks good. I'm taking it. If I can install it, that's good to go, right? But they don't realize other elements that they should be thinking about. Like you said, like asking the question, how long is this floor going to serve me? How does the sun hit the floor? How does it fit into my decorative scheme? How do we even decide on the right color scheme? Sometimes I'm on the internet in one of these social media sites and people are literally posting different tile options on a picture, asking their friends to help them decide because they don't know what to do. And I'm sure if they knew somebody like you who was a personal consultant, you could probably take away a lot of that frustration, just not knowing how to make choices. Do you also help your clients with the decorative side of things?
Yes, making sure that it all ties together, because I never want somebody to have an ugly house, obviously. I work off a referral, so I want people to love what they have. And some people are very specific. They are very much like, okay, I want ... and I want it to do this and this. And I'm like, perfect, I've got that. I'll bring it in, take a look at it. And then other people are like, well, I don't really know which way I want to go. So what I do is I'll bring a smattering of a couple of samples of each style in, the big major styles between like a pattern or a plushy style or a multi-tone. And it's kind of like an eye doctor. You know how you go in and the eye doctor goes, well, does A work or B work? Or does C work or does D work? That's kind of the way I do it. Now, don't look at color yet. Just look at what style appeals to you. And I always ask people what they've had before. What do you like or do you dislike about the current flooring that you have? And they always have something. Oh, I hated it because of this. And it's usually what they hated about it. Trust me. I'm
They know
like,
what they don't like, right?
exactly. So, okay, don't get that. Or Aunt Susie had this fabulous carpet that I really, really loved, and I want to get something similar to that. But then there's definitely the ones that don't have any idea. So we bring in a couple of different styles and say, okay, between this style and this style, which one do you favor? And by earlier conversations and talking to them and going, what are your needs? Do you have kids, the pets, or are you empty nesters, or whichever spectrum that you fall? That also helps identify kind of what ideas I should bring in for a customer as well. 9 times out of 10, I'm spot on with what they want. And then they'll say, okay, within this category, I'd like to see a few more options. And so then I run out to the car and grab a few more options. And then we start having fun with, okay, what is the color scheme that you currently have? Are you keeping that, or are you switching it out? And people always say, do I pick a paint first or do I pick a carpet first? And I'm like, well, it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. Which came first? So once you pick your paint, you can pick your carpet. Once you pick your carpet, you can pick your paint. It's whatever order you happen to have. And a lot of times I will consult with them and say, okay, this is your paint scheme. I think this would look good with this color carpet, or if you want this paint, I would go with this color carpet. The trends right now are the taupey tones and the grays. And I think we're starting to see the grays maybe sort of disappear just a little bit and back to more neutral tone carpet. And it ebbs and flows, it just depends on where people are at in the part of the state, the part of the city within the state, what part of the country, all that kind of stuff.
Hopefully we don't go back to the green carpets that people used to have many years ago. That being said, there are people who are very artistic and they really want to spruce up their space to make a statement. And in that case, it would make total sense. So again, what works for one person might be different for somebody else. And so you're saying you really lend an ear and focus on exactly what their needs are and listen to where they want to go and then make recommendations based on that.
Exactly. And then for the customer, believe it or not, I've had over the years, probably I could count it on 2 hands, the amount of people that did some sort of blue or green carpet. And it always turns out beautiful. And I always ask them, the first question they said is, how long do you plan on staying here? Because it is not the best for resale. And if you're going to be here forever, pick whatever you want, because it'll probably need to be changed out before you sell the house anyway. So, but it's funny because whatever they use to make green or blue carpet, it's almost like it's bulletproof. That stuff does not wear out. I take it out of houses all the time because they're selling, but it's still perfectly good looking carpet.
Yeah.
I don't know what they use in those colors, but I doubt we're ever going to see a major trend to go back to multiple color carpets in the houses. You remember I'm sure you probably
absolutely
saw those.
remember. Yes, the older homes, what triggered it for me was you were talking about trends, right? And back in the day, that was the trend. It's like almost every house had green carpets. And I remember I'd walk into a bathroom and it was green. And then there was one that was yellow and another one was baby blue. And then
Oh yeah.
bright green carpet. And I'm going, wow, this is this is really something. That was the style back then. And again, I don't necessarily think that we'll ever go back to that. You never know. Anything's
Never
possible.
know.
But I do agree with you that for the most part, people are wanting to stay neutral because then they know that they don't have to necessarily replace it unless they get to the point where when they're selling their home, the carpet is already kind of raggedy and needs to be replaced anyway. And then at that point, they would still need to put something in to be able to resell the home.
Exactly. And what I tell people too is like pick neutral for your carpet and then go crazy if you want on paints or accessories or anything like that, because it's a lot easier to paint a wall and than it is to switch out your carpet.
And I think the same rules apply to pillows. They always say if you want to add a bunch of color, put it in a pillow or a rug or whatever, because you can easily
Exactly.
swap that out. But the permanent stuff you want to keep as neutral as possible.
Exactly. And the same goes with like your tile choices in your bathroom. Don't do anything too crazy or dark or, whatever in bathrooms, because it's really easy to put your color into your towels and whatever accessories you want in bathrooms, because tile is even harder to change out than carpet is changed out.
I can imagine, because that's totally stuck in there. Like they use that caulk. So
Oh, yeah.
totally different from just yanking out carpet. That's not necessarily as permanent. Are there any trends in terms of materials? Are you finding that most homes now are using bamboo or wood or vinyl or fake tile, or I don't know. I don't even know what kind of materials are out there, but is there something hot these days that people seem to be gravitating towards?
Yeah, and that's what I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, is that the luxury vinyl tile that is coming out right now, and in my opinion, it's replacing the laminate products that were popular for the last 10, 15 years. This luxury vinyl tile stuff is awesome. It is a waterproof floor. And now I say waterproof because that's what they say on the pack, on all the information. No matter what you do, if you ever submerged anything in 100% water, you may have issues. But I can tell you, I did a test with this kind of stuff. I submerged a piece of this in a bucket of water all day long and let it sit there, and then I let it dry out, and absolutely nothing happened to this product. It is really, really good. It is very durable. It is very scratch resistant. I mean, it's not to say if you drag something heavy metal over the top of it, it won't scratch, but it's not going to just completely fall apart on you. So it's good for bathrooms, it's good for laundry rooms. And I did a dentist office a few months ago where they had this old engineered floor, and it was well adhered to the floor, but to take out all the dentist equipment and all of that kind of stuff, it was going to just be very daunting. We could actually install this product over the top of an old floor.
Wow.
It was really cool. We did it in a basement. There was some tile, old tile in a basement, and we put it over the top of this tile. I was like, "Are you sure?" And the manufacturer's like, "Yes, we can do this." So after we were installing it, I was there checking on it and making sure it worked good. And the customer couldn't have been more thrilled because it was a really easy update. So by being able to overlay it, it gives you a whole new look for pretty affordable.
It's probably also sturdy because you've got the tile underneath that's already kind of solid in there. And then you're just overlaying. So you're putting something extra on top and still beautifying it while not messing with the original structure that was already there.
Exactly. And it's also good for sound as well as some comfort too, where the old floors, like tiles hard, depending on the product that you look at in the luxury vinyl tile, some of it has a little bit of cushioning built into it. So it just takes away some of that hard to stand on when you're cooking and doing all that kind of stuff.
So it's not as hard as you would imagine, for example, hardwood, which I think is the concern for a lot of people, perhaps when they have kids, because they like kids to be able to crawl on a nice soft surface and they like carpets for that purpose. Of course, we know that harder floors are easier to maintain because you just mop them and sweep them and they're good. They don't get as much dirt trapped into them that you have to then continually clean like you do with carpet.
Exactly. And so that a lot of people like a full hard surface floor all over everything because of that. But then on the other side of it is you see every single dust bunny that collects in the corner that you don't
Yes.
see with the carpet. So
That's true. That's where the pros and cons come. And that's why somebody like you is so valuable because you can really share with them, okay, well, if we go with this thing, this is what you can expect. And if we go this other route, this is what you can expect. I've never heard of this vinyl thing, but I'll tell you, it sounds to me like a very happy compromise because it has the padding, but yet it's easy to clean and you don't have to tear out the floor necessarily. You can overlay. So it looks like they considered a lot of things that were pain points or problems that customers were having. And they said, hey, this product solves a lot of that.
exactly. And it was used a lot in an industrial, like churches and hospitals and schools, and a glue down method. And then I think this is just my thought is that it became more and more popular. So they decided, hey, let's try to use it in some residential applications because it initially came as a glue down product to us in residential applications. And then they started adding the click together portion of it. So even a homeowner that's a do it yourselfer could potentially install it. It snaps together and it floats. So if you have some time and ambition to do it yourself, it is something that somebody could do for themselves.
Well, you're reading my mind because that was actually my next question. I'm imagining you walking into somebody's home. They called you and they said, Amy, we really need your help picking out the right flooring for our needs. And you come in and you do your customer service, you listen, you give them recommendations, and then they finally make that decision and we know where we're going. And then now comes the part where we have to decide, okay, how long is it going to take to install and who's going to install it? Can you walk us through a little bit about what the listeners can expect if they were to talk with somebody like you in terms of once you get to the point where you made the decision, what's next?
Yeah, that's a great point because that's the next thing that has a lot of people concerned is, okay, I've lived in my house 10, 15 years. I've got 2 kids. I've got a rooms full of Legos and dolls and books and all of that kind of stuff. What do I do with all this stuff? Well, the good news is that you get to sort through all that stuff you've been hiding in the back of your closets and didn't want to look at. So it can feel a little bit overwhelming at times, but I have a great teams of installers. And this is the case of anybody. Your installation crew crew will come in. They can move the furniture items for you to help it so that you don't have to move the big heavy pieces, but you will have to move all the loose and breakable things and put them in an area that's not getting floor covering, and kind of a stuff shuffle basically. So the guys end up moving a lot of the big pieces into a couple of rooms, and then they'll do the flooring in the empty rooms, and then they move it all back and then move the extra stuff into those rooms. And so your stuff does get moved around a little bit. So we take great care in making sure that nothing gets damaged. So then you just have to make sure that everything is picked up off the floors, take the bedding off. I always disconnect electronics, books out of bookcases, that kind of thing. So, and I don't want people to feel like it's overwhelming, because it's not that overwhelming. You get to clean all those hiding holes that you hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah, so it's almost like forced cleaning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you
Exactly.
not only get new floors, but you get a cleaner room too.
Right. So then it looks brand new. And then
Yeah.
and a lot of people do sometimes they'll paint while while things are moved around or whatever, because they know that, okay, if I'm going to have this all torn up now, might as well do everything all at the same time.
What is the typical time frame between the time that they decide, okay, Amy, I want this floor, this is it? How long does it typically take for you to get the product and then do the installation?
For me, an average is around 2 weeks. It can get it in faster in some cases, and sometimes it might take a little bit longer. But I always tell people, give me an average of 2 weeks from the time you want it, from the time we order. And then installation time frame just depends on how big the job is. So if your house is, say, anything over 2,500 square feet, you're going to figure out that that's going to be at least a 2-day install. Anything under that, we can probably do in a day. And then it all depends on, the amount of furniture you have or no furniture. So there's different things that vary within that. And then they go from there. And then, staircases and all that kind of fun stuff.
That sounds very logical, because the bigger the project, the longer the time frame that it's going to take, the more people that are going to be required to get it all done. And there's just a lot of moving parts that you have to coordinate to make it all work.
Exactly.
With this particular product, you mentioned that it was possible if they choose to install it themselves, but not all products work that way. So is that something where when you consult with them, you also try to identify, okay, well, we can go with this. And then with this particular product, you have the option of either installing it yourself or hiring us to help. Or with this other product, it'll be very challenging. And yes, you're very skilled to be able to do it yourself. So you're likely going to have to get professional help. Is that kind of a conversation that you have with your customers?
A little bit, yes. I mean, most people are looking for somebody to install it for them, because a lot of people that can do it themselves will look and research it and maybe go buy it online, or maybe just go get some of it where it's like, you go in and pick up the box and take it home kind of stuff. But with carpet, you can't really do that. Carpet comes in these giant 12-foot long rolls that weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds, depending on how much you need. So it's really better to have a carpet installer install your whole house, because it's a process. I wouldn't even attempt to do it myself. I like to consult and sell. I don't want to have to install it. There's a lot of seaming, and it's very heavy, and you got to get those seams just perfect. It's like sewing. If you don't get your seams just right, they're all going to be discombobulated.
You're going to know,
crazy.
right?
Yep.
It's going to show.
Exactly. And getting that good stretch, because I'm sure people over the years have watched their carpet start getting those bubbles in them, and the rooms start going, why do I have waves in my carpet? Well, if you get a good stretch in there, that helps prevent that happening in the future.
What do you find is a typical thing that you wish your clients knew ahead of time to prevent them from picking the wrong product? Is there something like that in your mind that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Well, what I would tell people is when they're making their color selection, carpet goes down a bit lighter the bigger it gets. Now, when it comes to like the LVTs or wood floors, that's a whole different thing. But carpet's kind of the biggest one that this affects, is that carpet goes down lighter the bigger it gets. So don't be afraid to do that shade a little bit darker. I have never had anybody say to me, Amy, that was too dark. I wish I had gone lighter. I've had many, many people say, Amy, you were right. I should have gone a little bit darker. The lighter one, it looks fine, but I wish it was a little bit darker. So that would be like a big thing to think about. It not only does it help hide things a little bit more, it's just a little bit warmer, a little bit richer color. And now there's absolutely those people out there that want white carpet. Fine. You want white carpet. We will get you white carpet. That is totally fine. But that's just kind of the one thing that I think I've seen over the years, that people get so worried about going with just a little bit darker, and they need not be worried about that at all.
I would suspect that it's a concern because they have the opposite idea of what would happen with a darker carpet. They think that the actual stains or everything would show more in a darker carpet rather than lighter carpet because they think they might be able to bleach it or whatever and hide the
Oh
stains
God, don't
easier.
put bleach.
That, you know what I mean? Some people are probably thinking on their head, if it's white, I can make it white. But if it's dark and there's a spot, how do I hide that? So I guess in their heads are thinking it's easier maintenance if it stays light. And then I think also the other thing they're probably thinking is, I want the room to be as bright as possible. And they feel like that little extra shade might darken the space and make it look more like a cave. And nobody wants that. They get almost overly concerned to the point that
Yes.
what you're saying is just be neutral. You don't really need to go extreme either way.
That was very well said. Yeah. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, if we're dealing with a small room or a basement, it's very dark, I'm going to tell you, go lighter in this situation because you don't want that feeling of being enclosed. And 99% of the time, you can go just a hair darker or a little bit of a shade darker. And the funny thing is you don't even notice it because once it gets here and gets installed, you're like, no, that was the lighter shade or that was a darker shade? Because when it gets lighter, it almost appears as if it was the lighter shade to begin with.
When the customers order and they get it, they go, oh, it was totally different from what I thought we talked about, but that was it. That's it.
Oh my
It's
God,
just they
just had
forget.
that happen. Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. I can imagine because that's what happens to me. And so then I'm like, oh yeah, I could see other people going through the same thing because I know this is a challenge for a lot of us. How do we maintain our floor? How do we keep it clean? How do we get it so that it serves us the longest and stays nice as long as possible?
Well, the biggest thing you have to do is clean up spills, clean up anything that happens. And all the manufacturers have different ways of telling you how to clean up whatever life problem falls on your floor. Even if it's just a matter of spot treating a certain area, just keeping it clean, vacuuming it regularly and wiping up spills or cleaning up spills. That's the key to your longevity.
So usually liquids are the enemy.
Yes, sugary liquids are a nightmare because anytime, say, soda pop, depending on where you're from and which part of the country, gets spilled on the carpet, oh yeah, I blotted it up. Well, and with the newer carpets and the newer stain protections on the carpets, it literally will pool on top of the carpet for a period of time and you can blot it up. Well, that's great. But if you left any residue and with any sugar that's stuck in there, as soon as you walk over there with some dirt or whatever, dirty feet, it's all going to start sticking to that sugar like it does anytime you have something sticky. And then bang, now you've got this spot in your carpet and it gets harder and harder to clean up.
Yes, I think we all go through those same frustrations in terms of cleaning. Like you mentioned, for example, do not bleach your carpets, right? Are there things we should avoid?
Well, I will tell you, there are carpets out there that they can tell you that you can bleach it. I don't care what it says. Please don't ever bleach your carpet because you're never going to get the mixture right. Somebody's going to have like a 1 part to this and 4 parts to this. Don't ever put bleach on your carpet. I just don't trust it. A good quality carpet will have good stain protection. That's why I always refer back to the manufacturer's website because they have done millions and millions of tests. Incidentally, though, I like to do my own home testing because I'm just curious about things. I don't want to give somebody a product that I haven't played with and tested that I feel like is going to do what it says it's supposed to do. So the other day I got some cheap bottles of wine. I got a red one and a white one, and I was testing the stain protection of some wine. And somebody's always said, well, you can use white wine to get out red wine. So I'm like, well, let's try this. So I did. And then I tried a spot with just regular water and regular white wine. And at first I didn't see much results, but then as I let it sit, the white wine actually did kind of take out the stain a little bit better than plain water did. But now that's not everybody's case, and it all depends on the type of the carpet.
Of course, it's a risk because you're experimenting. But I like what you just said. Refer to the manufacturer's instructions. They know exactly what carpet they're getting, what brand it is, all of the warranties. And once they understand that and you walk away with a very happy customer with all their forms and paperwork, if they come across a problem, they can always go to the website to refer to it for advice in terms of how to clean it and how to deal with situations like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's really important. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And then we just go everywhere else and ask everyone else, what are you doing? And then sometimes that turns into a disaster because what worked for one person may not necessarily work for you.
Exactly. You don't know what brand of carpet they have or what style of floor. And like an LVT floor, for instance, that can be repaired pretty easily. So if you ever had a major damage to it, the installers can actually come in and do a repair to it. But again, you want to say, what does the manufacturer say about how we can go about repairing that or what to expect and things like that. This is why they got paid the big bucks, is to put all this engineering and all this into the warranties.
We overlook that the material type and the brand, and then we just try to come up with a universal solution. And that's why I hear it a lot, actually. I don't know. I'm sure you're on the internet, but so many people are commenting, well, this thing said to do this, because what we just said, their product was totally different and it didn't apply to that. And who knows? It could be a mix of polyester and cotton, and the other one is wool, and who knows, right? So you really have to understand the source where you got the carpet from, what can and can't do. And then again, refer to the manufacturer's information, because they would have the best kind of recommendations that you need to follow to keep that particular product working for you in the best possible way.
Absolutely. But I do have one tip I can share with you that doesn't have any requirements for any manufacturer. It is, you know how after you've put your Christmas tree up or you move a piece of furniture, you always get those little indentions in your carpet?
Yes, and your chair and anything that's on top of a carpet, the four legs,
Yep,
they always make these
exactly.
little, yes, indentations in there. Yep.
So here's a tip. So it's going to sound crazy, but go to your ice tray and get a handful of ice cubes and set it on top of that indentation. And then just let it melt. Forget about it. Walk away. Sometimes you might have to do it a time or two, and it'll maybe not get the deepest ones out, but it'll get some of the good ones out. And you just let the ice cubes melt. And somehow, as the ice cubes melt, it seems to fluff the carpet up. You vacuum it up, and you can't even tell that there was ever an indentation there.
I didn't know that. Now I'm so excited to go try it.
I do it every year after Christmas, because I mean, Christmas tree has one of those big ring bases, and it leaves this goofy ring right in the middle of my floor. So I just line up my ring with ice cubes, and then I totally forget about it. And I forget to even look back a day or two later, because I've done it and it's already disappeared.
And what's cool is that that's a seasonal thing, like you said, because it's not likely going to work if your chair has been sat on in the same spot for 5 years and that indentation might be permanent. But in this situation, you're talking about particular scenarios where you're putting something in a spot that's not necessarily there. And then after it's done, you're thinking, oh my goodness, it permanently damaged my carpet, when you can actually revive it.
And it never hurts to try on those areas where the couch has been sitting for 5 years. But for seasonal things, it definitely works.
Amy, so glad you were able to come on to the show and share your insights with my listeners. The idea is that if they are in the market for flooring, I want them to get more awareness as far as what to expect, what options are available for them, how to go about looking for the right solutions, so that they can wake up one day and go, okay, today's the day that I'm actually going to get a new floor for whatever part of the house they need it for.
Oh, and thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy. That's all for this episode of Live Blissed Out. Thanks for listening, and thank you to Amy Rasco for joining me today and for sharing tips on flooring. Join us again next week for another informative and motivational show. Please visit liveblисsedout.com for access to all our podcasts and resources, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you find value in our show, please leave an honest review either on the website or on Apple Podcast. Plus, if you haven't done so already, join our Facebook community at facebook.com/groups/LBO podcast. It's a great place to engage. So long for now, and remember to keep moving forward.